Well, good morning, Edwin. Thank you so much for joining us. If folks don't know, actually, Edwin and I both went to St. John's University. I'm wearing the Gophers hat today simply because the ladies are in the Sweet 16. Edwin is a leader in his community, as I've said in the intro, and we're so excited for you to be joining the DFL Daily today. Before we get into the work, I want to ask about you. What brought you personally to this work, and what does this cause mean to you on a human level?
Thank you, Richard, and hello, everyone. You brought up St. John's. I am a Johnny, proud Johnny. But what brought me to Minnesota, because I'm not from Minnesota. I was born in El Salvador, grew up in Los Angeles, and I will say St. John's lied to me. They showed up a beautiful video in the spring and summer. And mind you, the reason why I bring this up because it gets into your question. I couldn't fly in. This is before DACA was a thing. I'm a formerly undocumented immigrant of 25 years. And I had to believe the brochures. I had to believe this beautiful. If you haven't been to St. John's, just go for a walk. Wherever is listening or watching this, it's gorgeous. But mind you, back in 16 years ago, showed up. First winter was in Thanksgiving Day, and I first time seeing snow. And but it's one of those things that I will forever remember. Just coming to Minnesota for the first time. But that's kind of my background. When you walk the world, when you walk society without documentation, you really start seeing the differences. You start seeing the how careful you have to be, especially in places where you're not really welcomed, right? And so as someone who's been undocumented for so long, um, getting that piece of documentation that gives me a sense of dignity and presence legally in this country, I've used that to make sure that I've advocated for our communities, whether it is people in Cold Spring to Worthington to all over the state of Minnesota, the Twin Cities. The reason why I do this work is because of my mom and dad. I'll just be very honest, Richard. It's how can you not do a work of protecting immigrant rights when your own people are under attack, are put in detention centers, and their own due process is stripped away, and their own dignity is taken from them. So that is who I am, and I'm so excited to be here with everyone.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Tell our listeners about the Immigrant Defense Network. What is the mission behind IDN's work?
Yeah, the Immigrant Defense Network got started actually back in November of 2024, literally 24 hours after the elections. Many organizations, ACLU Minnesota, Advocates for Human Rights, Copal Minnesota, ICOM, the Interfaith Coalition on Migration, and many others met immediately. All of them had read the specific chapter on immigration crackdown of Project 2025. They told us what they were going to do, and we just believed them, Richard. And it's been really cruel to see the way that they have extended those bullet points, but they've done everything from ICE and airports. It's there.
Mhm.
People are like, why is this new? They told us what they were going to do. So the Immigrant Defense Network got started. Obviously, then it was not called IDN. It was just a lot of concerned leaders coming together. And after a few months of discussing, something happened in Minnesota. On Valentine's Day of 2025, there was a large workplace raid in Rochester. And that's when leaders said, okay, enough talking. Let's put something together. And that's how the Immigrant Defense Network grew and was born. We're now a coalition. We're a coalition based organization of over 100 organizations. We have trained over 33,000 constitutional observers. I know you've trained observers as well with the DFL. And we are about to be done in a few weeks with our 30 city tour all over the upper Midwest. So we've been in Iowa, in critical places in Iowa, in critical places in Wisconsin. We just got back earlier this week from South Dakota, Sioux Falls, and in Fargo, North Dakota. So we've been all over the state of Minnesota. We now have trained observers in 82 out of the 87 counties. And now the work is as we continue to defend immigrant rights, we have to look what is also happening and coming down in November and protecting our ballot box.
Absolutely. When the when the ice surge hit Minnesota, your organization IDN was in the thick of it. Can you take us back a little bit to that moment? What were you seeing? What were families experiencing from your perspective, and how did the IDN respond?
It's one of those things that I still have to like journal because there's so many things happened within a 24-hour period, over 100 days. Let me get you back to Thanksgiving of 2025. We were trying to get things ready, trying to have some downtime. We kind of already start seeing the escalation of ICE in Minnesota. Bro Tex had just happened in St. Paul. We were working with those families with two of those kids whose dads were taken in Bro Tex. And for those who don't remember, in Bro Tex, ICE agents showed up in St. Paul, had a warrant for one person, but they took 14 people from this workplace. That was a defining moment. Before then, the last raid that took place was in Cuatro Milpas on Lake Street back in June. And after that, within a few days later, we saw a massive escalation in East St. Paul in the Phelan community, where 40 agents wrapped around a house. We were there. I was there. I was there when I was pepper sprayed, tear gassed, shoved, pushed. A lot of my neighbors were too. Elected officials were. Some of your, House and Senate Democrats were there getting tear gas along with us, and we knew something had happened. We knew something, a tone had changed. And then on December 1st, it is reported that over 600 agents are in our streets of Minneapolis, and Minnesota, and all over the state. That grew to over 1,200 agents by January 1st, north of 2,000 the next week. It led to the killing of two of our neighbors, Renee and Alex, and also the shooting of a Latino man in North Minneapolis in the leg. Um, we responded in a way that just the best way to describe it is a humanitarian crisis. It's like what you would expect after a natural disaster. Our hotline, which is operated by one of our founders, Gopal, received an average 500 calls a day, which is roughly about a call every 3 minutes. Some of that was reporting ICE activity. Majority were families seeking help. We have so many calls of children calling saying, "I just got home from school and I don't know where my mom and dad are." We got calls from elders. We got calls directly from people inside the hospitals because of the way that the violent detention took place of them that ended up with injuries. We have calls of families who couldn't find their loved ones in the system, right? Once you were in detention, it's a campaign of confusion on purpose. They would take someone and then they would ship them to other states, most notably in Texas. So we would try to help families. So what we did was over 100 orgs and everyone who helped. This is not a one person led organization, nor is it a one institution that did all the work. It is the work of dozens and dozens, including the DFL, who helped train so many people, tens of thousands of people. And what we did was we did rapid response. We did aid, mutual aid. We did direct food service. We partnered with shelves to make sure that they were had the resources. We took families to their court hearings. Many of them did not make it after the court hearings. We then helped kids, right? Find. I think I'm not the only one. I think I have 17 signed DOPA forms at one point. And yes, I was gonna take 17 kids in because their parents trusted, right? And that's what every community member did. And it's not just me, it is every neighbor, every single neighbor that helped. I am not the only one that knows of so many people that have so many DOPA signs, form signs. So we all responded the way we could. There was a distinct difference after the shooting of Renee Good.
Mhm. Um, we all know that ICE isn't completely gone. We know that there are reports every day of them around the Twin Cities and around Minnesota. Uh, so while the surge might not be in full effect, what does the immigrant defense network's work look like right now?
That is right, Richard. We are still getting dozens of calls a day, but those calls are different now. We are getting a lot of calls of people who have won their habeases, right, to come back to Minnesota, but they're coming back with no rent. They're coming back with no place to live because a lot of the landlords believe that their homes were they just left, they were abandoned. We have so many families coming back with high medical needs and legal needs. They may have won their habeas, but that doesn't mean that that attorney is the one who is going to represent them to the end of their immigration hearings. So we're getting a lot of families who are just in desperate need of help. The aid is not over. We are helping hundreds of families, even with rent support, every single month. And many of them are still, have a backlog. Maybe we took care of 1 month, but now it's March, approaching April. And so I think right now, what we are seeing is still a high need of aid. People are asking us, is there still a need? There's a desperate need of aid. But now we're also moving our attention to this election. 2026 is coming right around the corner. Everyone who has trained individuals, whether it is right the Indivisible, Move On, 5051, and many others, Copal, and every single group that has helped train people. I think all of us are in the same way. We are now going to be evolving to protecting and safeguarding our ballot and making sure that people know that information because we don't know when ICE will come back, but we know they will. And there's still raids happening right now, not to the levels of the Metro Surge, but they're still happening. And in some places, they're happening mostly in rural towns, down in Dodge County, down in rural places. So we are still doing that defense work, but the reality is that families still need help. We're still there to help those families, and now we're looking into training our constitutional observers to make sure that every single place that you can vote in Minnesota, that there's no intimidation and fear in doing that.
Yeah, we're going to be training thousands and thousands of poll protectors so that everywhere in Minnesota we are ready to go coming this November. Um, we've been talking all week, Edwin, about how in this moment Minnesotans are the heroes,
Mhm.
and what you've just described is a lot of that hero work that took place, right? And it's not one person, it's not one organization, but it's thousands of people and dozens of organizations doing this work. We're going to see that this weekend with the No Kings movement, where they're hosting their rally in St. Paul. The DFL will be there canvassing the crowd, signing people up to be door knockers and phone bankers and poll protectors, so that they can take the training that they need in order to be equipped with their tools. How does your organization think about plugging into this kind of broader movement? You already talked a little bit about what your plans are,
Yeah.
and then I just want to end with what gives you hope. So, how are you plugging in, and then what gives you hope?
Thank you, Richard. Let me answer with what gives me hope. I saw my dad for the first time about 3 weeks ago. He was in hiding for about 2.5 months. And I was followed by ICE for about a full day. ICE has shown up to my house. I know I don't have any orders of deportation and I'm a green card holder. So it is based in intimidation and fear. When I saw my dad, he gave me a huge hug and he said, "Son, don't be afraid. And know that when I was in hiding, hiding is a form of resistance." And then soon after I saw him, I had to get on a bus to drive down with 100 other leaders to Selma, Alabama. We had the unique honor and privilege to be invited by the Rainbow Push Coalition to walk together on that sacred ground of Selma, to connect the 1960s civil rights struggle that also had bloodshed, and connecting that at the end of the day, they were maybe fighting for dignity and voting rights, but that's pretty similar to what we're fighting for. We're fighting for citizenship. The struggles are the same, they're just a different coin. And what gives me hope is that just like in the past and in the present, neighbors are showing up. And those neighbors are showing up on Saturday. We got invited to be part of the steering committee of the No Kings flagship event here in the Twin Cities. And we've been organizing our community. We'll be leading one of those kickoff marches at the Western Sculpture Garden, and we will be marching to the Capitol. And together with neighbors from all over the state of Minnesota and some that are traveling just for this event from other states, we're going to send a loud and clear message. There are no kings in this country. And together we will make sure that we are the line of defense, and we will continue that work to the rest of this year and beyond because we have several years of this administration. So that's what gives me hope, Richard, knowing that we're not alone, knowing that in Minnesota, people and neighbors decided to love each other, decided that fear was not an answer, and decided to be brave.
Well, Edwin Torres, thank you so much for joining us today. You are a leader among the heroes in the state who are demonstrating to the rest of the country how we show up for each other and how we show up for our country. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Richard.